Have you ever been alone, scrolling through Snapchat, when suddenly, something unexplainable appears on your screen? A face that wasn't there before, a figure standing behind you, or a presence that shouldn't exist. It's easy to dismiss these as glitches or tricks of the light. But what if they're more than that? What if, just for a moment, your phone captures something, or someone, that you can't see with your own eyes? VRScout.com. +10. Twisted Truths. +10. Reddit. +10. In today's story, we're diving into one of the most chilling and perplexing experiences shared by a teenager using Snapchat. This isn't just another tale of a spooky filter or a creepy glitch. This is a first-hand account of a teen who, while alone in her room, activated a Snapchat filter and unknowingly invited something or someone into her space. Twisted Truths. +1. Business Insider. +1. The story begins innocently enough. A teenager, let's call her Emily, was spending a quiet evening at home. Bored and looking for something to do, she decided to play around with Snapchat filters. She'd done it countless times before, trying on dog ears, adding rainbow vomit, or turning herself into a cartoon character. But this time, something was different. As Emily set up her phone and activated her favorite filter, she noticed something odd. The filter detected not just her face, but a third face, one that wasn't hers. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, but as she moved the camera, it became clearer. A face, pale and expressionless, hovered just behind her, as if standing in the empty space of her room. Reddit. +2. Soul Ask Unlock Your Mind and Soul. +2. Reddit. +2. Panicked, Emily quickly checked her surroundings. The room was empty. No one was there. She turned off the filter, convinced it was a glitch. But when she tried again, the face appeared once more. This wasn't a trick of the light or a malfunctioning app. Something or someone was in her room, and Snapchat had captured it. Terrified, Emily shared her experience online, and to her astonishment, she wasn't alone. Others reported similar occurrences, Snapchat filters detecting faces in empty rooms, figures appearing in the background of selfies, and faces that shouldn't have been there. Some dismissed these as mere coincidences or technical errors. But for many, the question remained, what was really happening? As we delve deeper into this story, we'll explore the science behind Snapchat's facial recognition technology and how it might be misinterpreted. We'll also examine the psychological and emotional effects of these experiences on those who have encountered them. And perhaps most intriguingly, we'll consider the possibility that these aren't just glitches or tricks of the mind, but genuine encounters with something beyond our understanding. Business Insider. So, if you're ready to uncover the truth behind these eerie occurrences, stay with us. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of what's really happening when Snapchat detects that third face. And who knows? You might just think twice before using that filter again. Emily had always been a skeptic. Raised in a small, tight-knit community, she was known for her logical approach to life. Her friends often joked that she could dissect any conspiracy theory with a single Google search. But that evening, as she sat alone in her dimly lit room, her world was about to be turned upside down. It was a Friday night, and Emily had just returned from a long week of school. Her parents were out for the evening, leaving her with the house to herself. She decided to unwind by scrolling through her Snapchat feed, a routine she found comforting. As she flipped through stories and messages, she stumbled upon a new filter that promised to transform her into a mystical creature. Curious, she tapped on it, her face morphing into an ethereal being with glowing eyes and shimmering skin. She laughed at the transformation, amused by the app's capabilities. But then, something strange happened. The filter began to glitch, its effects warping and distorting unnaturally. Confused, Emily tried to reset the filter, but it persisted, its anomalies growing more pronounced. That's when she noticed it, a faint, translucent figure standing behind her in the reflection of her phone screen. Her heart skipped a beat. She spun around, expecting to see her younger brother sneaking up behind her, but the room was empty. No one was there. Shaken, Emily checked her surroundings, her eyes scanning every corner of the room. The door was locked, the windows closed. There was no way anyone could have entered without her noticing. Yet, The figure remained on her screen, its presence undeniable. She snapped a photo, hoping to capture the anomaly. When she reviewed the image, the figure was clearer, its features more defined. It was a woman, her face pale and expressionless, her eyes hollow. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Determined to understand what was happening, Emily shared the photo with her friends. They were equally perplexed, some suggesting it was a glitch, others speculating it was a trick of the light. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister was at play. She decided to investigate further, researching similar occurrences online. To her horror, she discovered that she was not alone. Others had reported similar experiences: Snapchat filters detecting faces in empty rooms, figures appearing in the background of selfies, and faces that shouldn't have been there. One account stood out among the rest. A user had shared a video where, while using the popular dog filter, a second face appeared in the background. The user, intrigued, had spoken aloud, "Ghost, open your mouth," and to their astonishment, the filter's dog tongue extended from the wall behind them, as if responding to the command. The video had gone viral, sparking widespread discussions and debates. Teen Vogue. +1. TheClever.com. +1. Emily's mind raced. Could it be possible that Snapchat's filters were detecting something beyond the physical realm? Was there a connection between these anomalies and the supernatural? She had always dismissed such notions as mere superstition, but the evidence was mounting. As she delved deeper into her research, Emily uncovered a chilling pattern. Many of the reported incidents occurred during moments of heightened emotion, grief, fear, or loneliness. Could these emotional states be attracting these entities? Or was there something about the filters themselves that was opening a gateway to another realm? Determined to find answers, Emily decided to conduct an experiment. She set up her phone with the same filter, positioning it in the same spot as before. This time, she focused on maintaining a calm and neutral demeanor, hoping to see if the filter would behave differently. As she activated the filter, she watched the screen intently. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, just as she was about to give up, the figure appeared again, standing behind her, its hollow eyes staring directly at the camera. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. This was no glitch. This was real. But who was this figure? And why was it appearing now? Was it connected to her, or was it a random occurrence? The questions swirled in her mind, each one more unsettling than the last. As she pondered these questions, Emily received a message from an unknown number. The message contained only a single line of text: "She's coming for you." Chilled to the bone, Emily tried to trace the message's origin, but it led to a dead end. There was no sender, no traceable information. It was as if the message had materialized out of thin air. Terrified, Emily reached out to her closest friend, Sarah, hoping to find some comfort. Sarah listened intently as Emily recounted the events, her voice trembling with fear. After a long pause, Sarah spoke softly. "Emily, I think I know who she is." Sarah explained that she had heard rumors about a local legend, a woman who had disappeared years ago under mysterious circumstances. Some believed she had been a victim of foul play, while others whispered that she had been involved in dark rituals. The common thread among all the stories was that she had been obsessed with technology, particularly with capturing images and videos. Emily's quest for answers had only just begun, but already, the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. Determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious figure captured by her Snapchat filter, she delved deeper into her family's history, hoping to find a clue that would explain the unsettling presence. Her search led her to a dusty old photo album tucked away in the attic, its pages yellowed with age. Among the faded photographs, one image stood out, a portrait of a woman who bore an uncanny resemblance to the figure in Emily's Snapchat photo. The woman in the photograph was identified as Eleanor, a distant relative who had vanished under mysterious circumstances decades ago. Intrigued, Emily reached out to her grandmother, hoping to learn more about Eleanor's disappearance. Her grandmother's reaction was immediate and intense. With a trembling voice, she warned Emily to stop digging into the past, insisting that some things were better left forgotten. Despite her grandmother's plea, Emily pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. She discovered that Eleanor had been known for her obsession with photography, often capturing images of herself and others using various lenses and filters. Some whispered that she had delved into the occult, using her camera to communicate with the other side. As Emily pieced together the fragments of Eleanor's life, she began to notice strange occurrences around her own home. Objects would be moved when she wasn't looking, and shadows seemed to linger longer than they should. One evening, while reviewing her research, Emily received an anonymous message: "Stop before it's too late." The message sent a chill down her spine, but she couldn't turn back now. Her investigation took a darker turn when she uncovered a hidden journal belonging to Eleanor. The journal detailed experiments with photography and rituals intended to capture and communicate with spirits. One entry described a ritual that involved using a camera to trap a spirit within a photograph, allowing it to interact with the living. The final entry was a cryptic message: "The lens sees all. The lens holds all." Armed with this new information, Emily attempted to replicate the ritual, using her own camera and a filter similar to the one she had used when she first encountered the mysterious figure. As she activated the filter, the room grew cold, and the lights flickered. For a brief moment, she saw the figure again, standing behind her, its hollow eyes staring into hers. But this time, it didn't vanish. It reached out, its hand inches from her shoulder. Panicked, Emily dropped her phone, and the figure disappeared. She tried to gather her composure, but the weight of what she had experienced was overwhelming. She realized that the figure wasn't just a glitch or a trick of the light, it was a manifestation of something far more sinister. Determined to confront the entity, Emily sought the help of a local paranormal expert. The expert explained that the ritual Eleanor had performed had likely opened a portal, allowing the spirit to cross over into the physical world. The filter had become a conduit, amplifying the spirit's presence and allowing it to interact with the living. Together, they devised a plan to close the portal and banish the spirit. The ritual involved using a special lens, one that had been passed down through generations, to capture the spirit and trap it within the lens. As they prepared for the ritual, Emily felt a sense of dread wash over her. She knew that this was her last chance to rid herself of the entity that had been haunting her. Elite Daily. The ritual was set to take place during the next full moon, when the veil between the worlds was thinnest. As the night approached, Emily gathered her courage, ready to face whatever awaited her. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that the entity was aware of her plans, watching her every move. On the night of the ritual, Emily stood before the mirror, the special lens in hand. She recited the incantation, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. As she looked into the mirror, she saw the figure again, its hollow eyes locked onto hers. But this time, it didn't move. It simply stared, as if waiting for her to make the next move. With a deep breath, Emily raised the lens to her eye and focused on the figure. The room grew colder, and the lights flickered once more. She snapped the photo, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then, the figure lunged forward, its hand reaching out to grab her. But just as it touched her, the lens emitted a blinding light, and the figure screamed, its form disintegrating into nothingness. Emily collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. She had done it. The entity was gone. But as she looked at the photo she had taken, she noticed something unsettling. A faint outline of the figure still lingered in the corner of the image. It was as if the spirit hadn't been banished at all, merely trapped within the confines of the photo. With a heavy heart, Emily realized that the battle was far from over. The entity was still out there, waiting for the right moment to return. And she would be ready. Just when Emily thought she had gained control over the nightmare that had overtaken her life, something unexpected shattered her fragile sense of security. Days after she trapped the ghostly figure within the photograph, her phone began acting strangely again. Slow response, random restarts, and photos she didn't remember taking began appearing in her gallery. Most were blurry or distorted, but a few were eerily similar to the original ghost photo, except now, the figure wasn't behind her anymore. It had moved slightly with each image, closer to the foreground. At first, she considered it some kind of tech glitch, maybe a cache issue with the camera, but the timestamps didn't make sense. Some photos were marked with dates that hadn't even happened yet. More disturbing was that one image seemed to have been taken inside her best friend Sarah's room while Sarah was asleep. Emily didn't want to panic Sarah without proof, so she tried brushing it off until one night Sarah called her, whispering in fear. She had received a Snapchat notification with no name attached, just a blank Bitmoji icon and a message that read, "You shouldn't have helped her." Sarah, thinking it was a prank, clicked the user's profile only to find it didn't exist. The screen went black for a moment, and when it returned, the ghost filter activated on its own. It pointed toward the corner of her room, where the second face flickered on the screen, expressionless, and just like before, hollow-eyed. Sarah's voice shook as she explained all this, and Emily could tell something in her had cracked. The ghost wasn't just attached to Emily anymore, it was spreading. This changed everything. Until now, Emily had assumed that whatever haunted her was personal, some kind of family curse linked to Eleanor's past and the ritual gone wrong. But now Sarah, who had no blood ties to Eleanor, was being targeted too. If the ghost was moving between people, that meant it was no longer limited to the lens or the photograph. It had found a new way to exist. Maybe the photo hadn't trapped it at all, maybe it had simply learned how to use it as a doorway. Desperate for answers, Emily returned to the journal, scanning pages she had initially ignored. That's when she found something chilling, a passage written in rushed, jagged handwriting, completely different from the rest. "She doesn't want to be seen anymore. She wants to see through us." That single line twisted everything Emily had come to believe. The spirit might not have wanted to be visible, maybe her appearance on the filter was never accidental. Maybe she had let herself be seen to manipulate Emily, to lure her deeper until she could fully cross over. And now, through the camera lenses and the screens everyone relied on so heavily, she was no longer bound by space. The ghost wasn't haunting Emily's house. She was haunting the tech they used every day. Emily reached out to the only person she hadn't yet involved, her cousin Nathan, a college sophomore studying computer science, someone who had always been obsessed with coding, AI, and dark web conspiracies. She thought she could trust him, but when she explained everything, Nathan didn't seem as surprised as she'd expected. In fact, he seemed almost intrigued. Instead of brushing her off, he asked for the original photo, then requested access to her Snapchat account. Emily hesitated, unsure whether she should give it to him. Nathan had always been close with Eleanor before she vanished, even though he never liked to talk about it. There were family rumors that Eleanor had tried to involve Nathan in her ritual experiments when he was a child. Back then, people thought it was just a bored teenager's obsession with ghost stories, but now, Emily wasn't so sure. Still, against her better judgment, she gave him access. Within hours, things spiraled again. Nathan went radio silent. His phone rang once before going straight to voicemail. Then Emily received a file transfer request from his email, an unmarked zip file with no subject line. When she opened it, it contained a series of screen recordings of her own Snapchat activity, including some snaps she never sent and others she never remembered filming. One, in particular, stood out. It showed her sleeping. The phone was recording from her nightstand, and in the background, the closet door creaked open slowly, inch by inch. The video ended abruptly as if someone had stopped it midway through. The worst part. She hadn't slept with her phone facing her bed in weeks. Everything was unraveling. Emily started to suspect that someone close to her wasn't being honest, and she couldn't shake the feeling that maybe this wasn't just a supernatural problem. Maybe someone was helping the entity, intentionally or not. She thought about the message Sarah had received, "You shouldn't have helped her." Was that directed at Emily or Sarah? Was the ghost singling out those who interfered? Or was someone using the ghost as a mask for something even darker? And then, out of nowhere, her phone buzzed with a new message from Nathan's account. No text this time. Just a live video request, sent at 3:17 a.m. She stared at the screen, her fingers frozen above the accept button, every instinct screaming at her not to answer. But before she could decide, the screen flashed white and her lights went out. And just like that, everything went quiet. The moment the lights snapped off, Emily's body froze as if every part of her was holding its breath. The glow of her phone screen was now the only source of light in the room, casting strange, shifting shadows on the walls. She stared at the frozen video request from Nathan's account, the clock in the corner of her phone reading 3:17 a.m. exactly, down to the second. But the video request wasn't moving, and when she tried to exit out, her phone became unresponsive. The screen flickered once, then again, longer this time, and suddenly, the image from her camera activated on its own. The filter had switched itself on without being touched. This time, no playful dog ears or rainbow puke. Just a blank screen with the facial recognition frame scanning the dark room. Then the frame locked onto something behind her. Something she knew wasn't supposed to be there. Emily didn't turn around. Her instincts screamed not to. Instead, she slammed her phone face down, grabbed her flashlight from the desk drawer, and flicked it on, aiming it toward the space behind her. The beam cut through the darkness and landed on nothing. Her room was empty. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling as she picked up her phone again. The filter was off now. The camera was back to normal. But the sense of being watched remained, thick and suffocating like smoke. She didn't sleep for the rest of the night. She sat upright in her bed, flashlight pointed at the door, her thoughts spinning into darker places with every passing hour. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just in her head anymore, it was here, in her room, in her life, infiltrating everything she relied on to feel safe. The next morning, Emily reached out to Sarah, desperate for a voice that could ground her back to reality. But Sarah didn't answer. At first, she assumed her friend had overslept, or maybe she was just avoiding her after the frightening message. But as hours passed and calls went straight to voicemail, a sick feeling twisted in Emily's stomach. She texted Sarah's mom casually, asking if she had seen her. The response came back quickly, "Thought she was with you. She left the house last night after you talked." That was the last message Emily read before her chest tightened with panic. She hadn't seen Sarah. She hadn't told her to come over. And Sarah was gone. It was the first time things escalated beyond filters and strange messages. This was real now, someone she loved was missing, and Emily couldn't shake the fear that Sarah's disappearance was her fault. Every moment that followed was consumed by dread. She went to Sarah's house, retraced her steps, talked to classmates, and even combed through local forums and true crime Reddit threads for any sign of a lead. But Sarah had simply vanished. No Snapchat updates, no new streaks, nothing on her Bitmoji location. It was like someone, or something, had completely erased her presence. Emily tried reporting it to the police, but without a clear crime or known destination, all they could do was file a missing person report and promise to follow up. Emily returned home exhausted and numb, feeling like the ground beneath her was crumbling faster than she could keep up with. She sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by the photos, the journal, her phone, and the cursed lens that had started it all. As much as she hated to admit it, she felt utterly alone now. Even Nathan hadn't returned any calls since the last file transfer, and a sinking thought entered her mind: what if he wasn't ignoring her? What if he couldn't respond because something or someone had already gotten to him too? The days that followed blurred into each other. Every screen she looked at felt like a trap. She started covering her mirrors and taping black paper over her phone's front-facing camera. The notifications didn't stop, though. Random usernames, strings of numbers and letters, began adding her. Her Snap score fluctuated even when she didn't open the app. Snaps appeared in her memories that she swore she never took, grainy videos of streets she never walked, recordings of conversations she never had, and always that same face showing up in the background. She started noticing people watching her in real life too. Not just a passing glance, but the kind of stare that makes your stomach turn. A man on the bus with a cracked phone screen pointed toward her for too long. A woman at the grocery store whose Snapchat was open even though she wasn't taking any photos. Was it paranoia? Or had the ghost, whatever it really was, started pulling more people into its grip? Emily couldn't help but wonder if it had always been this way, and she had only now started really seeing it, through the lens of her phone, her apps, her daily life. What if it wasn't just one ghost, but a system, a presence built into the very technology people relied on? What if the haunted filter was never a malfunction, but a warning? A signal that something buried deep in the digital infrastructure was trying to surface. Maybe Eleanor's ritual didn't open a doorway. Maybe it activated something that had been waiting for someone like Emily to come along, someone curious, emotional, isolated. Someone who would fall for the illusion of control. Then, late one night, as she sat scrolling through the memories on her phone, trying to understand what had changed, she found a new folder, one that hadn't been there before. It was named Simply Return. Inside were only 3 items: a blurred screenshot of her front door taken from the outside, a 4-second audio file of someone breathing heavily, and a single message with no sender information. It read, "You're not the first. You won't be the last." Emily's hands shook as she stared at the screen. Her front door had been closed and locked all night, or so she thought. She ran to check it, but when she got there, something was taped to the outside, a photo of her and Sarah, taken from behind them weeks ago, while they were laughing on the school steps. She hadn't even known it had been taken. And in the far left corner of the image, standing under the trees, was that same pale face. No longer blurry. No longer hiding. And this time, it was smiling. Just when Emily thought the darkness had fully enveloped her, the phone call came. It wasn't from Sarah, or Nathan, or even the police. It was from her grandmother. The same grandmother who had begged her to stop searching for Eleanor, who had warned her that some things were better left untouched. Her voice was shaky, a nervous edge that Emily had never heard before. She immediately asked what was wrong. The grandmother hesitated, as if struggling with whether to reveal something she had kept hidden for decades. "I should have told you this years ago," her grandmother began, her voice barely audible over the crackling line. "The photo you found, the one of Eleanor? That's not just a picture. It's a warning, Emily. It's something that was never meant to be found." Emily's heart skipped. She leaned in closer, trying to make sense of the words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her mind racing. "Eleanor, she didn't just disappear. She was taken." Her grandmother continued, her voice cracking with emotion. "When Eleanor started messing with those cameras, those rituals, it wasn't just for show. She saw things she couldn't explain, things that no one else could see. That photo you have, it was taken during one of her experiments. But she didn't capture what she thought she did. She captured the one thing she shouldn't have, a glimpse of a shadow that wasn't hers. Or anyone else's. It was something else." Emily felt her stomach churn as she processed the words. This wasn't just some ghost story or urban legend. This was real. The thing in the photos, the entity that had begun haunting her, was something that had been in her family for generations, something far older, far more dangerous than she could have imagined. "I should have destroyed that photo. I should have kept you from ever finding it," her grandmother's voice trembled. "But it's too late now. The portal you opened by messing with that filter, it's connected to something much bigger. You have to stop, Emily. Before it's too late." Emily barely heard the rest of what her grandmother said. She was still reeling from the revelation. Everything she had believed, everything she had thought was true, was falling apart. Eleanor wasn't just some victim of a failed ritual. She wasn't just someone who got caught up in a dangerous obsession with photography and the occult. She had seen something. Something that had been hiding in the shadows of their family history, waiting to be brought back to life. And now, whatever that thing was, it had found her. It had found them all. But as Emily tried to wrap her head around this shocking revelation, another thought hit her like a punch to the gut. What if her grandmother had been lying? What if she knew more than she was letting on? After all, this wasn't the first time Emily had encountered secrets buried deep within her family. What if her grandmother's fear wasn't just for Emily's safety, but for her own? Had she been keeping things from Emily all along? And that's when it hit her. Nathan. Emily's cousin, the one who had seemed so eager to help, who had known about Eleanor's obsession with rituals, who had been so quick to offer his expertise when she had reached out to him. He had always been oddly familiar with the details of Eleanor's life, too familiar for someone who was supposed to be just another distant relative. What if Nathan wasn't just a concerned family member trying to help her? What if he was part of something much darker? Emily's mind raced as she replayed their last conversation. Nathan had asked for access to her Snapchat account, something he had no reason to ask for. And the way he had eagerly dove into the research, diving into the files she had sent him, didn't sit right. There had been something off about the way he had acted. The way he had made no real effort to contact her since then. Was it possible that Nathan had known about the curse all along? That he had been studying the very same rituals and dark history that Emily had unknowingly stumbled upon? Had he been involved with Eleanor's experiments? Had he already started manipulating things for his own gain, or even worse, been in league with whatever dark entity had been haunting her? Without wasting another second, Emily grabbed her jacket, her pulse hammering in her ears. She had to find Nathan. She had to confront him, demand the truth, and find out what he knew before it was too late. The entire time she drove to his apartment, the same question echoed in her head: what if Nathan is the one behind all of this? When Emily arrived at Nathan's place, the door was unlocked. She hesitated for a moment, staring at the faint light that leaked from the cracks around the doorframe. But the fear of what she might find inside pushed her forward. She stepped inside, calling out his name, her voice trembling in the otherwise silent apartment. There was no response. The room was eerily still, every surface cluttered with books on technology, the occult, and cryptic symbols. She didn't even have time to process the sheer volume of research when something caught her eye: a laptop left open on the desk, the screen filled with a complex web of files, code, and Emily's heart-sank photos. The same photos she had seen on her phone. The same ghostly figure. Nathan had been studying her every move. As she walked closer to the laptop, her breath caught in her throat. One of the open tabs on the browser was a video link, a live stream. And the title was chilling: The Final Transmission. She clicked it without thinking, her finger trembling. The screen flickered to life, and Emily's blood ran cold. The video was shot from a familiar angle, the inside of her own bedroom, the same one she had been in when she saw the ghost through the Snapchat filter. The camera was shaky, as if someone was filming from a hidden vantage point. And there, standing in the corner of her room, was a figure. The same face. The same eyes. But this time, the figure wasn't static. It was moving. And it wasn't alone. The video from Nathan's laptop shook Emily to her core. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the screen, but every second made her feel more and more trapped. The figure in the corner of her room was unmistakably the same: a distorted, pale face, locked in that hollow stare, but it was the second figure that made her blood run cold. The person standing next to it, shrouded in darkness, was unmistakably Nathan. Emily's cousin. The one person she thought she could trust. He was there, right in her room, filming her, watching her. But it wasn't just the fact that Nathan was behind the camera that made her feel like the world was closing in. It was the way he stood there, not moving, not reacting to the presence beside him. It was like he was complicit, like he was part of whatever dark force had invaded her life. She stared at the screen, her heart hammering, but her mind racing through everything she had learned so far. Nathan hadn't just been trying to help her, he'd been part of this all along. The messages, the ghostly figure, the strange occurrences, it wasn't just a coincidence. Everything she had experienced, everything that had led her to this point, was connected to Nathan. The question was, why? What was his involvement? Was he in control of this dark force, or was he just another victim, drawn into the same trap she had fallen into? The silence of the apartment around her felt suffocating. The weight of the revelation pressed down on her, but even more pressing was the sense of urgency that gnawed at her insides. Time was running out. She had to act, but every choice felt like a step deeper into the unknown, and every step forward came with consequences. Should she confront Nathan directly? But how could she even approach him with what she knew, knowing that the thing she had once thought was a ghost was now much more real than she ever could have imagined? The implications of his involvement in this, whether through naivety or malevolence, were enormous. If he was in league with whatever was tormenting her, then Emily's life was in even greater danger than she had realized. If he was a victim too, if he had been manipulated or controlled by this entity the same way she had been, what did that mean for the choices she had to make next? She couldn't trust anyone, and yet, there was no one else she could turn to. Sarah was gone. Nathan had disappeared into the darkness, his intentions unclear, his true role in all of this unknown. As Emily tried to gather herself, the reality of what she was facing settled in with a heavy finality. The videos, the strange filters, the sudden disappearances, it wasn't just a haunting. It was a living, breathing nightmare, one that reached into the very fabric of her life. Every aspect of her existence was being controlled, shaped, and twisted by something far beyond her understanding. She was caught in the middle of it, fighting to survive while trying to make sense of the madness that surrounded her. And now, she was faced with the ultimate choice: keep searching for the truth and risk everything she had left, or cut ties with the past and protect herself from the unknown force that seemed to be closing in on her. Either way, there was no escaping the web that had been spun around her, no easy answers, no way out without facing the consequences. But as Emily stood there, staring at Nathan's haunting image on the screen, a new message flashed on her phone. It was a Snapchat notification, but this time, there was no sender. Just a photo. A photo of her. Taken in real time. She hadn't been in her room. She hadn't been near her phone, but there she was, clear as day, standing at the edge of the street outside Nathan's apartment. A chill ran through her. It wasn't possible. No one knew where she was. No one could have known. But the image didn't lie. The photo was time-stamped with a new date. A date in the future. It wasn't just a random shot, it was a reminder of what had been set in motion, a glimpse of something yet to come. Someone was watching her. Someone was toying with her, making her feel trapped in her own skin, unsure of who was on her side, who to trust, and who to fear. Her phone buzzed again, and this time, it was a message. She opened it hesitantly, bracing herself for whatever new nightmare awaited her. The text was simple but sent a wave of dread through her chest. "We're all connected, Emily. You made the choice the moment you looked at the photo." It was signed with a symbol, one she recognized from the journal Eleanor had kept. It was the same symbol that had marked the rituals, the same one she had seen in Nathan's research on his computer. She could feel the walls closing in on her. Whoever had sent the message knew everything. They knew what she was thinking, where she was going, and they were already one step ahead. There was no way to avoid it now. Emily had no choice but to confront Nathan. But what could she possibly say to him? How could she possibly face him after everything she had uncovered? But as she stood there, staring at the message, a new thought crept into her mind. What if Nathan wasn't just hiding the truth from her? What if he had been trying to protect her? What if everything he had done, every strange decision, had been made because he knew something darker was coming for them both, and he was trying to stop it without letting her know the truth? Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice message from Nathan himself. His voice was shaky, the words strained, as if he was struggling to find the right thing to say. "Emily, you have to listen to me," he began, his voice cracking with desperation. "Everything you've seen, everything you think you know, it's not what you think. This thing, this curse, it's bigger than anything we ever imagined. It's not just us. It's spreading. You have to make a choice, go into hiding, or confront it head on. I don't know what will happen next, but I know if you keep digging, you'll only make it worse. Please, trust me. Please." The message ended abruptly, leaving Emily standing in the middle of Nathan's apartment, feeling more lost than ever. Was he begging for her to stop? Or was he warning her about something she hadn't yet grasped? The choice, the ultimatum, had been laid out before her. There was no safe middle ground. She couldn't ignore the truth anymore, and yet, diving deeper could drag her into an abyss from which there might be no return. A sickening wave of realization hit her. Nathan had been there the whole time, hiding in the background, watching her. He had been the one pulling the strings, playing her, pretending to help when all along he had been manipulating the situation. "Nathan," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and betrayal. But the figure didn't respond. Instead, it slowly raised a hand, pointing toward her with an almost mechanical motion, and in that moment, everything changed. The street lights flickered as if reacting to the shift in the air. The figure's eyes glowed, but not in the way Emily had imagined. It was a cold, unfeeling glow. And before she could even register what was happening, the sound of footsteps behind her froze her in place. She spun around. Another person. A woman this time. Her face was covered in a dark veil, but Emily could see the glint of recognition in her eyes. The woman stepped closer, and Emily's heart sank as she heard the voice that chilled her to the bone. "You shouldn't have come here, Emily," the woman said, her voice low, almost mocking. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" she demanded, every instinct telling her to run. The woman didn't answer at first. Instead, she stepped forward, revealing a pendant hanging around her neck, something Emily had seen before. It was the same symbol. The same one from the journal, the one Eleanor had used in her rituals. Emily's blood turned cold as she realized the truth. The woman wasn't a stranger. She was connected to it all, the curse, the entity, the dark force that had slowly been drawing them all into its web. You thought it was just Nathan, the woman continued, her lips curling into a faint, almost sad smile. But it's bigger than that. Much bigger. You've only scratched the surface. This is a game, Emily, and you've already made your move. Now the question is, will you play it to the end? Emily could barely breathe as the weight of her words sank in. She wasn't just dealing with Nathan's involvement in the curse. She was dealing with an entire network, a group of people who had been working behind the scenes, manipulating events for their own twisted purpose. I don't know what you're talking about, Emily whispered, though she could feel the truth rising up in her chest like a tide she couldn't stop. You're part of it, aren't you? She asked, her voice hoarse with fear. The woman only nodded slowly, her eyes gleaming with something darker. We all are, she said cryptically. The ones who know the truth. The ones who are tied to it, whether we like it or not. But not everyone is as strong as Nathan. Not everyone can handle the power. It hit Emily like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about surviving the curse or uncovering the truth about Sarah's disappearance. This was about control. Power. There were people out there, in the shadows, manipulating everything for their own gain, and Nathan had been one of them. But now, as Emily faced the woman in front of her, she realized something even more terrifying. This was only the beginning. The woman stepped closer, her hand brushing against Emily's arm in a way that made her skin crawl. You're not as alone as you think, Emily. But the question is, will you join us, or will you fight against it all? Because the truth is, you've already made your choice. And now, you'll have to live with it. With a final, haunting smile, the woman turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving Emily standing in the street, her mind racing as the gravity of everything she had learned crushed down on her. Nathan, the woman, the entity, it was all connected. And now, Emily was a part of it. But the hardest question of all remained, would she join them, or would she try to destroy everything they had built? The tension in the air was palpable as Emily walked through the abandoned warehouse, the only sound her rapid breathing echoing off the walls. The darkness seemed to pulse around her, wrapping her in a suffocating grip. Every step felt heavier than the last, the weight of everything she had uncovered pressing down on her chest like a stone. She had come this far, followed the twisted trail of breadcrumbs, but now she was on the verge of something far more dangerous. It wasn't just about the truth anymore. It wasn't just about Sarah, or Nathan, or the strange curse that had tied them all together. No, this was bigger. This was about power, about control, and Emily had no idea if she was strong enough to stop it. She had tracked them here, followed the cryptic messages and the mysterious figures, pieced together enough to realize that everything, absolutely everything, had been leading her to this moment. The woman in the veil, the chilling message she had left behind, the strange symbols she had seen in Nathan's notes, they were all a part of a much larger plan, a plan that Emily had unknowingly become a part of. And now, standing in this cold, dimly lit warehouse, she was ready to confront the one person who had been behind it all. The one person who had orchestrated this twisted game from the beginning. Nathan. Her heart raced as she stepped further into the warehouse, the shadows growing longer and more oppressive the deeper she went. The walls felt like they were closing in around her, the silence deafening, until finally, she heard a sound, soft at first, then growing louder. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Her pulse quickened as a figure emerged from the shadows, and for a moment, she thought she might pass out from the intensity of it. There he was, Nathan. But this wasn't the Nathan she had known. The one who had helped her, who had tried to protect her. This Nathan looked different. His eyes were hollow, his face gaunt and pale, his posture stiff, as if he were being controlled by something far beyond his control. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, staring at her with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. You're too late, Emily, he finally said, his voice cold and hollow. You shouldn't have come here. It was never supposed to be you. Millie stood her ground, refusing to let her fear overtake her. What are you talking about, Nathan? She demanded, her voice barely a whisper, but strong. You knew this was happening. You knew about the curse, about the entity, and you still didn't warn me. You lied to me. Nathan's lips curled into a twisted smile, and for the first time, Emily saw a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. You think I've been lying to you? I've been trying to protect you, Emily. But it's too late. There's no turning back now. His words were laced with bitterness, and for a moment, Emily wasn't sure if he was speaking from his own will or if something had taken over him. Something far darker. You're not Nathan anymore, are you? Emily asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. This isn't you. Nathan's smile widened, and then he laughed. It wasn't a laugh of amusement, though it was hollow, almost maniacal, like he was no longer the person she had once known. It never was, he whispered, his eyes locking onto hers with a chilling intensity. You've always been a part of this, Emily. You just didn't know it yet. You're tied to this curse, to this darkness. You always have been. The realization hit her like a freight train, and suddenly, it all made sense. Nathan wasn't just involved in this curse, he was the one who had helped make it happen. He had been playing her from the beginning. He had manipulated her into thinking she was trying to break free from the darkness, when in reality, he had been feeding it, guiding it, pulling the strings from the shadows. You're working with them, Emily breathed, her voice barely audible as the truth slowly sunk in. The woman in the veil, the people who have been controlling everything, you're one of them. Nathan's expression faltered for a split second, but then he regained control, his smile returning with an eerie calm. I am what I am, Emily. We all are. This thing, this power, it doesn't care about us. It's about control. It's always been about control. And you, he took a step closer, his voice lowering to a whisper, you were meant to help me. But you were too stubborn. You wouldn't see it. So now, I have to finish what we started. With a sudden, unnatural speed, Nathan lunged at her, his hands reaching for her throat, but Emily was quicker. She stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest, the adrenaline surging through her veins. She barely managed to avoid his grasp, but the force of his lunge sent her crashing to the ground. As she scrambled to get up, her eyes locked onto something, a small, gleaming object on the floor, half hidden in the shadows. It was the pendant. The same one that the woman in the veil had worn. It was lying just within her reach, and in that moment, Emily knew what she had to do. Without thinking, she grabbed it, the cold metal pressing against her palm as she held it up. Nathan froze. The change was instant. The moment the pendant made contact with the air, the atmosphere shifted. His body tensed, his eyes widening in shock and fear as if the pendant itself had triggered something inside him. For a split second, Emily thought she saw something flicker behind his eyes, something human, something familiar, but it was quickly replaced by the same hollow emptiness. It's too late, Emily, Nathan's voice rasped, his words more like a warning than a statement. You don't know what you've unleashed. Before Emily could respond, a deafening crash echoed through the warehouse, followed by a surge of energy that knocked her off her feet. She barely had time to register what was happening before the world seemed to shift, the ground beneath her trembled, and the shadows around her seemed to come alive. The air was thick with a presence she couldn't describe, a presence that felt ancient and terrifying, as though something far beyond her understanding had been unleashed. The pendant in her hand began to glow, its light pulsing with a power she had never felt before. And as she looked up, she saw it, an enormous figure emerging from the darkness, its face distorted and featureless, its presence overwhelming. It was no longer just Nathan she was facing, no longer just the game they had been playing. This was the true force behind it all. Emily's heart raced as she realized the truth. This was never about her or Nathan. It was about something far older, something far darker. The curse had never been an accident, it had been a carefully orchestrated plan. And she was the key. But just as she thought she might lose herself in the overwhelming darkness, something shifted within her. The pendant in her hand pulsed with light, its energy surging through her, and in that moment, Emily understood. She wasn't just a pawn in their game. She was the answer. The one who could stop it all. But to do so, she would have to make the ultimate sacrifice. With a final, defiant breath, Emily stepped forward, ready to face the darkness head-on, determined to end the nightmare once and for all. And as she held the pendant high, The world around her seemed to shudder, like everything was holding its breath, waiting for her final move. And then, as the light from the pendant exploded into a blinding flash, everything went dark. When Emily woke, the world around her was eerily silent. She lay still for a moment, her senses struggling to come back online as the weight of everything that had happened began to settle in. The first thing she noticed was that the darkness, the heavy, oppressive weight that had seemed to swallow her whole, was gone. There were no shadows lurking, no feeling of being watched. Just peace. The pendant was still in her hand, its glow dimming to a faint shimmer, like a dying ember, but somehow, it felt like the storm had passed. Slowly, she pushed herself to sit up, the cool concrete beneath her palms grounding her, reminding her that she was alive. Alive, but different. Changed. The last thing she remembered was the explosion of light, the overwhelming surge of energy, and the terrifying figure that had loomed in front of her. Had she succeeded? Had the curse been broken? Had she really managed to stop whatever dark force had been pulling the strings all this time? Or was it all just a dream? The questions swirled in her mind, but as her eyes adjusted to the faint light coming from above, she realized she wasn't alone. Nathan was there, sitting a few feet away, his back against the cold wall, staring into the distance with a hollow expression on his face. He looked like the same Nathan she had known, the one who had once cared for her, who had been by her side through so much, but there was something about him now that felt distant. He hadn't moved when she sat up, hadn't even acknowledged her presence. The only sign that he was truly there was the faint, rhythmic rise and fall of his chest. Emily swallowed hard, her mind racing. She wanted to rush to him, to demand answers, to understand what had happened, but the words didn't come. There was a weight in the air, an unspoken tension that hung between them like a thick fog. Finally, Nathan spoke, his voice low and hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in years. "It's over, Emily," he said quietly, not looking at her. "The curse. It's gone." His words hit her like a wave, but as she processed them, she realized that they didn't carry the relief she had hoped for. Instead, there was a bitter taste to them, a sadness that seemed to resonate in the very core of her being. She could feel it now, his presence, but it was like he wasn't really there. Like the Nathan she had known, the person who had been so important to her, had vanished, leaving only the shell behind. She opened her mouth to speak, to ask him what had happened, how it was all over, but the words caught in her throat. There was something she couldn't quite grasp, something just out of reach that made the air between them feel thick with unspoken truths. "Nathan," she said, her voice trembling. Are you okay?" Nathan finally turned to look at her, his eyes hollow, dark circles beneath them. For a moment, he looked almost empty, like he had been drained of everything that made him who he was. The light from the pendant flickered softly, casting long shadows across his face. "Do you really want to know?" he asked, his tone oddly detached. Emily hesitated, unsure of how to respond. She had so many questions, so many things she needed answers to, but something in the way he said those words made her feel like digging any deeper might reveal a truth she wasn't ready for. Instead of answering him directly, she looked down at the pendant in her hand. The symbol on it was still faintly glowing, but its power seemed to be fading, like it had already given everything it had. The curse, the darkness, the twisted forces that had been controlling them, it was all gone now. But what about the people it had touched? What about the scars it had left on their lives? She looked back at Nathan, and the weight of everything that had happened pressed on her chest, threatening to crush her. "It's over," she whispered again, but this time it was more for herself than for him. She wasn't sure if she was talking about the curse, or about her own connection to it. What was left now? What was the point of it all? Had they really won, or had they just been players in a much bigger game? Nathan stood up slowly, the creaking of his joints louder than it should have been in the silence. He looked down at her, his face unreadable. "There's nothing more to say, Emily. It's done." But Emily wasn't so sure. She didn't know if the fight had truly ended. Yes, the curse had been broken, the darkness banished at least, she hoped so, but something still felt unfinished. Like a piece of the puzzle was missing, a hidden part of the story that no one had been brave enough to uncover. As Nathan turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the warehouse, Emily felt a strange sense of loss wash over her. She had won. But at what cost? Had she lost him forever? Had she lost herself? She looked down at the pendant one more time, holding it between her fingers as its faint glow flickered one last time. And then, as if sensing her hesitation, it went out, leaving her in darkness. The silence that followed felt final. Almost too final. The kind of silence that made her wonder if the real story had just begun. With a heavy heart, Emily stood up, leaving the warehouse behind. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she would ever see Nathan again, or if she would ever truly understand what had happened. But as she walked into the cold night, the city lights flickering in the distance, one thing was clear: the curse might have been broken, but the shadows it had left behind would linger, forever. And somewhere, deep in her heart, she couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't seen the last of it. As the camera faded out, the final shot lingered on the darkened pendant, now lying forgotten on the cold concrete. There was no going back. The mystery might have ended, but the questions would never stop.